Hello YouTube, welcome back to Baldman Building an Airplane. This is section 36, part 3, and we are actually assembling the push rods, whereas in the previous video we just did some sort of preparation for assembly. Yeah, there's a bunch of different parts that look the same. Some of them are bigger than others, but there's like some of those tubes are the same size. So we're going to cut to real-time Ryan for this. What I like to do on these, if I've got many parts that have similar pieces that I've match drilled, I'll mark them in such a way that they're unique. So on this end we've got red 3 lines, opposite end blue 3 lines. That's down there. And then on this one I've got a blue solid piece and a red solid piece that match on the other end. 4 different parts, 4 different markings. Makes it easier to reassemble and clock them correctly when you do reassemble. So yeah, these are pretty simple though, other than making sure that you get the right piece in the right tube. Another way you can ensure that is only do one at a time. I tend not to do that with things like this though, because I tend to work in an assembly line sort of way. I've kind of learned to do that to make my time more worthwhile. So I'm not like sitting there switching back and forth between tools. It's do as much of the same task as many times as possible, so you're not like flopping around with stuff. And then yeah, so here we go. We're gonna actually we did the assembly on these. I primed them. There was some time away from camera. Obviously they're green now because they've been primed. And yeah, here comes the actual, putting those rod ends on, and I've got a tip for that. So there's a call out in the plans about these rod ends, basically stating that you don't want them to be less than halfway engaged. So, they're about an inch. They've got an inch long thread that can go in there. The idea is that if somehow this thing just keeps turning and turning and turning, it'll bump up against the jam nut and or the end of it on one side before it hits the end of the other side. So the plans call out, like, make sure they're both at least halfway threaded in. Well, on this one, it's kind of insane because if you can see that, it's like 7/8 of the way threaded in just to freaking get it down to the size that they specify. So I don't know if I didn't shave down the tube well enough before I put it together or what, but I'm okay with this because this is safer, right? Because there's no way that either one of these can back all the way out because it's going to be completely locked in position. I'm going to add to this something that I decided to do for these to get them the right measurement, and it's probably not super critical because you can adjust them once they're in the plane. But what I did, and probably saw on the FAST video, I measured the length and where it needed to be. I drilled some holes, and then I put these AN3 bolts through the holes in the workbench to do it. So then what you can do is the point on the bolt should, if everything's right, be the center, right? That's the center line of that bolt. And the center line of this bolt, right? So then you just line it right up with your, in this case, 31 and 11/16 all the way down to here. And this one is lined up with the center too. So it's not the most accurate measuring tape. I don't have a nice rule that's that long, but it's pretty close, and I have plenty of slack to work with on the jam nuts. So there you go.
All right, so we've drilled some new holes for this other one. This is probably the mid. We worked on the forward first. Or no, here comes the mid. This is a little bit longer one. It goes from the idler arm back to the pitch servo slash bell crank area. And then this big one is the one that goes from the bell crank and the pitch servo all the way back to the elevator control horn. This is the one that I was talking about before. It's like a 1 1/4, 1.5 inch diameter. It's a pretty big tube, pretty long tube as well. But yeah, it looks like even this one as well, it looks like they're most of the way threaded in. So when Vans gives a specification, which is really just sort of a like work from here on guideline of how long these should be, because every plane is going to be slightly different, and if one of them's longer, then the next one needs to be shorter in order to get proper travel of the control surface and make sure it's centered correctly and la-di-da-di-da. But yeah, most of them I try to keep the same number of threads exposed on either side and then torque those down. So this assembly here, this is the bell crank that sits in the aft fuselage section. That's what attaches the mid fuselage pushrod, mid elevator pushrod to the aft elevator pushrod. It's a pretty simple assembly. It's just got a bearing in the middle. You torque it all together, and then you sort of put it into this assembly that I'm building here, which holds the pitch servo. Apparently I did this after. Yeah. I did all the wiring for the pitch servo prior to installing this, but I decided to install this according to the plans once it was in place, which I kind of get. So, all right, well, that wraps this one up. In the next video, we're going to be installing these push rods into the fuselage, which is quite fun. And by fun, I mean not fun, especially if you do it out of order like I did. Thanks for stopping by. Hope to see you back next time.